Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Apartment Department, the podcast for multifamily marketers by multifamily marketers. My name is Ann Baum. I am the marketing director at Town Properties. We're a property management company in Cincinnati, Ohio, and my co-host is Chris Johnson, and he is a marketing leader at a firm in Dallas, Texas. And so we wanted to talk to everyone today about something, Chris and I like to talk a lot about kind of this idea of going back to basics, and something that is very basic, very foundational, but sometimes maybe gets overlooked or, doesn't quite get the attention it deserves is the property website. And so we wanted to talk to everyone today about, we've both been, thinking about our property websites lately, revisiting the features, understanding what's really getting prospects to convert. And so we wanted to go ahead and share that conversation with everyone today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Chris. Chris, what say you? What is going on with property websites?
It's a good question, and we're trying to figure that out. What we do know, Anne, hello, by the way.
Hi.
is that our base, and it doesn't really matter age, demographics at this point, but most of our visitors are coming from mobile. And it's been going that way for a while. But now, I think the shift has really happened. I think we're 70% or higher on visits to our website, mobile versus desktop. So what are we going to do to make that mobile experience better? I always say you get one chance at a good first impression. And that first impression is both when somebody comes on property, of course, with the staff, but also when they visit you digitally. And how do you make it easy for them to make a decision to at least schedule a tour or get more information on these websites that we're creating? And what content do we really need to focus on to grab their attention? I think everybody is getting smarter about this. It's great. We have awesome templates out there by many different companies and the websites look slick. But what content are we really using to make a difference and be maybe a little bit more niche so we stand out from the pack?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And we definitely have touched about, on kind of the future of content in our conversation with Eden. That was something that came up, this idea of the search generated experience and kind of having content that's available for how people are going to search in the future. And so I'm glad that we're talking about this again, because I think it's something that a lot of people are talking about, but not necessarily then. One of the things that we talked about with him is the idea of the templates that we're currently using. Is that obsolete, right? Like, should we be rethinking how we structure our websites? I know in our case, we have about 8 pages on our websites, and 2 of the pages on our websites get about 80% of the overall, views on the website. So do we even need those other 6 pages, or could we consolidate into a website that had 1 or 2 pages? And so I think it's fascinating. And I think there's a huge opportunity for marketers in multifamily right now to rethink the website. So where's your head at? What content do you think is most important for prospects when they're looking for an apartment?
Price and floor plans, I think, matter. And I think amenities come next. We've all become pet friendly. We know how important pets are. They're our family. And so giving that information up front, I think, is important as well. I am looking at doing new websites right now. And one thing I am asking is how easy it is to get video embedded and have a video experience. Because I do think people like video. They want to see something versus read it. And how do we, in my head, I'm trying to think, can I make a Instagram short or TikTok type video that people land on? Not the typical drone stuff that some companies do, which still looks good, but more of a sales commercial pitch, but in that short format that we're used to seeing on some of these social sites. So that's been an important key for me as I shop new templates and think about what I want to do next on my websites, is just how do I make the user experience better? And I think it always comes down to price first and floor plans. But I don't know about leading with that. That seems like a tough thing to do without showing it. It'd be scary to not show a nice image or a nice quick video drone shot of your property when you land.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And then, I mean, maybe it goes back then to the, you know, what we've been talking about previously is what people are searching for. So maybe that's not necessarily the homepage image, but the content of those videos is very focused on information that prospects are looking for. Maybe it's like a resident testimonial or a day in the life of a resident or resident event or I know those are very generic ideas, but I think you're onto something. But I agree with you. I don't know if in place of kind of what we're used to, or maybe it is because maybe it would be different. You like trying, different new things and
I
using the
know.
data to see. So
I think I might
I
try
think for
something
all of
with the
us.
video. Yeah, maybe we'll try something with the video on the homepage and make it a little bit more personal and make it more of a 30-second commercial versus just the standard, scrolling of images. It's kind of like what we've been talking about over the last couple of years. Everybody kind of does the same thing. How many pools do you need to look at? I just don't think the prospects are coming to the site and seeing the pool and saying that's the one. I think they're coming to the site and saying it's in the location that I want and it's got the price that I want. It has the bedroom count that I need. And it's almost like, how can we incorporate some of this on the Google page so that maybe they don't even need to click to the website anymore? They just come to the property. How do we make sure our website is feeding them what they want? I mean, I'm looking. This is giving away some of my secret sauce, but I am gonna do a video FAQ because I have a clean slate as I've started at a new company, and so we can do this type of thing. And a video FAQ, I think, is going to be game changing, and we put that on the website because people, we can use that. We can cut it so many different ways and use it in so many different places. And so I'm going to try and see what that looks like. And then AI is coming along, and how is AI going to help us answer some of these questions as well, both on the website and when people are searching. So I'm just trying to think through all of it, and I want to do something different. I think it's time. Our websites have gotten a lot better, obviously. We have live pricing, we have all the things now. Availability's live. We've been doing that for a little while. We've incorporated AI. Our templates have gotten smarter. We have interactive site maps, which I love, and definitely something I'm looking at now. But how do we actually change how people look at a website? And I think it's a bigger question because if you go look at other websites, they're all kind of the same.
Yep.
No matter what industry you're searching, websites have kind of stayed the same, which is interesting if you think about it. Maybe that's because it works. I don't know. Maybe we should look at it that way too.
I don't know. I was really inspired by our conversation with Eden and this idea of, like I said, our stats show that two of our pages are visited the most. It's the homepage page and the floor plan page. So why are we bothering with the other ones? I'm fascinated with that idea. And the other thing I'm fascinated about is this idea of brand making a decision. I think by the time someone gets to your website, they've already heard about your property from other places. So they already kind of have an idea of who you are. So it obviously has to be consistent with, the other sources that they may have seen you on. And then it just has to be really easy. It has to be easy for them, almost like an e-commerce site, right? Like it's really easy to go buy something on Amazon. I buy stuff all the time. And do you know how I do it? I do it by how fast it can come to my house, how cheap it is and how fast it can come to my house. And then sometimes I'll like look at the reviews too. But like, what if we could make our property websites more like an e-commerce site and just make it really, really easy for a conversion rate? I don't know about, our conversion rates are fine on our websites. It's one of our highest converting marketing sources, and we do track by first touch attribution. So I do feel comfortable saying that it's not just people who have, I feel comfortable with that statistic, but could it be better? Probably. Like, should we be comparing ourselves to other industries? Jude talked a lot about using benchmarks from like software companies and other industries, and maybe this is an opportunity for us to take data that exists in other industries and how their websites perform and flip property marketing websites on their head.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. I think you're right. Make it as easy as possible to get the information. Do you think when people are looking at the floor plan page, this is kind of getting into the nitty gritty, but do you think they care about if your floor plan's 2D versus 3D, or if you have the Matterport tours? How much of that do you think plays? I mean, that would be interesting to see, to get some data on that. And at my new place, I don't have that data yet, but just to look at how many times the Matterport or whatever system you're using is getting clicked and like run through. Because I think about that too. For me, I don't think the Matterport helps. To me, I just want to see the space that I have. I prefer 2D. I'm probably in the minority here because I think it's easier to look at, although 3D looks pretty. But that kind of stuff means something as well. And if we go to video, I wonder if instead of doing a Matterport, we just shoot an iPhone video and take a walkthrough and make it gritty and make it more like a viral organic video and less production. It'd be interesting to talk to it'd be good to have a focus group and actually talk to some of our prospects that walk in the door about what means if the website helped them in their decision, or if it's truly most of the time, 80% of the time, it's just price and location for what they can afford, when they want to move in, availability, all those things. Like how much does actually landing on the site and all the fun marketing stuff that we're doing make their decision different than just, it was the right place, right time, right location, right price?
Yeah, that's interesting. Now you're making me rethink my whole like thing about property websites. So to your first point about like the idea of this like gritty or like more organic feeling, I think honestly that would work if the brand of the property was kind of organic and gritty. But I think if you'd have to ask yourself, like, does this media fit with the feel of the property? Yes or no?
That's a
Because
good point.
yeah, I
Fit
think
within the brand, right?
yeah, I think in some cases you couldn't get away with that. It would feel like, imagine if you went to like a super fancy hotel website and you're like, I like seeing what my hotel room looks like. And
That's
you
true.
went and it
That's a
was
good
like
point.
an iPhone.
I
Yeah.
mean, like if it's a like crazy class A high rise, you probably don't want to do like a gritty video that seems more organic. That's a
But
good
I
point.
but I think you're right. I think it could work with certain properties. Like I absolutely, and so that's fascinating. So then that opens a whole other can of worms. Like we're, I think we're going down like 20 rabbit holes, which is a good thing. But
Well, I
um
think the point though is that we're asking the questions and just saying,
yes.
how can we get better? And
Yeah.
you can't get better unless you ask these type of questions and do some testing. I mean, I would say to your point, yes, most people land on a couple of pages, but the other pages add content. And as you know, content helps you be found. And so I think you still need to incorporate some of that. Maybe it's in a different way. Maybe it's in the footer instead of like actual page on the website or whatever. And it still links somewhere and you still have the content live. You just don't promote it like we promote it today. Because like the neighborhood page, although it's great information, and I think we've gotten real slick on how we actually show what's near our communities, I don't think anybody goes there. I think they already know for the most part, unless you're moving out of state, which does happen, of course, or you're
Yep.
moving out of city, you probably aren't looking at that because you probably already have an idea. So I think it does provide value for some people, probably not all. But how do we could even make that better? I mean, just with the technology today, I'm just thinking in my head, how can we keep tweaking to improve to make things feel better for our prospects? Because if you create that comfort and then your team is great when they arrive, then they're going to say, wow, they're better than the guy next door.
Yep.
And you're already going to win. They won't even go because they're like, why would I? Everything is hitting here.
Yeah, I think you're right. I like your idea of a focus group. Do you do focus groups a lot?
I did them a lot at Lewis, the first company I worked for way back. We always did focus groups. We did focus groups on all of our new product and even product that was existing to find out what they like, what they didn't like. As we built new communities, we wanted to hear how we could make it different. And one of the questions that Randall Lewis would always ask was, give me an insanely great idea. That's how Steve Jobs would do it at Apple. Just give me something that's so crazy and so outside the box that you want to see inside your apartment home and go around the room. And a lot of the times the ideas weren't that insanely great, but every once in a while you would get the one where it's like, holy cow, do a technology house that has built-in speakers and media room and all the things and just have an upcharge for it, kind of like a penthouse or something. for our garden style, apartments in Southern California. And so maybe we should start asking what's an insanely great idea for our websites,
I like that.
or copy Google Store, or copy Apple Store, and or not copy them, but go look at what they're doing and see what we can do there because they're tech companies. And how do they make it easy?
Yep.
They show a lot of pictures. That much I can tell you. The picture drives what you click, and then the pricing's right underneath. They make it pretty easy to understand what you're buying.
Yeah, and it's very standardized. I think this is making me think too about, I'm wondering if at some point the purchase point, which is currently our website, is going to switch, or at least there's the opportunity to expand the purchase point to like social media. You can buy things on Facebook Marketplace. You can buy things on TikTok. You can buy things on Amazon. Like, are there other ways for us to be selling people apartments and for them to be purchasing them online?
Yeah,
And
I think you
that's
can put the link there, and they could probably go to your link to your application page. But we would have to think about that,
like,
how that would look and feel, because that application page usually goes to your back end software system, whatever you're using, and of course that experience isn't that great because they assume that you already know which unit or apartment you're looking for.
right.
And so when you're on social, you may not know that yet, or you may want to compare a 1 to a 2. So that maybe we have to push our software partners to get a little bit better on the application page as well. Because there are probably very few companies out there that are doing that custom. I would imagine that most of them are using some sort of partner for that back end and keep track of it, right? Like Irvine Company is the only company I could think of that would do it on their own. And I think they do. They're a huge company in Southern California, and they do most of their stuff is custom. But that takes a lot of work, time, effort, IT support, the whole thing.
That's interesting because then, too, I'm thinking about this more. That goes back to being able to sell an individual unit as opposed to a floor plan. Like, if we could market an individual unit with its individual media, have the purchase point be on the website or other platforms, then it would eliminate that issue you just mentioned about, like, well, when someone goes to the application page, they usually don't know what unit. But if you were selling that specific unit already and they were purchasing it like a product, I don't know. Sorry, totally not website related, but
It is website related though, because what if there's got to be ways that we can start pushing our tech partners. Now I've got my brain going. Like, why can't we make the search better? That if we know that they searched on Google for a 2-bedroom, why can't our websites be responsive and we show them 2 bedrooms and they land first?
they can, you know what? There are dynamic website content platforms that you can do something like that with. It just doesn't exist in multifamily. It exists in other industries.
That's what I'm saying. Like, why we should be pushing our partners to try to get us, and we can do, you can, it's a little clunky because you could do a landing page, right? If somebody searches in Google, you could have a bunch of landing pages and you could give them a dynamic search that way through your ad, not through organic necessarily, but definitely through your ad, because you could bring them to the landing page that they wanted to see. And I've tested that early in my career. Of course, everything comes first full circle, but I used to have an ad landing page just for ads. It didn't go to the main site. It went to a landing page.
Yeah, the ones, and then they're supposed to be like shorter forms so that people like are in a different mindset and they convert higher. But I do think that there's companies where you basically put a pixel on your website and then it allows the content to change dynamically. We'll have to look.
Maybe we have that now and we just haven't asked.
That's what I'm saying. I think it exists for like other industries. It's just not being used in, homework. I've got homework.
Yeah, I'm going to go ask. I'm shopping now, so I'll put that on my list of questions to ask. But I think you have to probably work with your back-end partner too to see how that works. I know I'm not plugging RealPage here, but I've been a user of theirs a lot lately. And I do know that they do have products called like Demand X and things like that, where the ads are dynamic for sure, and what they're showing and the pricing and all of that. So those are good questions we should start asking our partners to make it better. We should always be striving to make make it more seamless for our customers. And that's why having these discussions is so great. Just us talking about it, because it kind of gets us thinking about things. to at least try to make the experience better. And then how do we get AI? I mean, that's the other piece is AI is going to start exploding and AI is going to have to play a role in this. And it's so funny. After we had our discussion with Eden, that was such a good call.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a website and any of the things that I've searched. It eventually gets there if you scroll down and it'll show you where that content's coming from. But I mean, they really are high domain authority websites.
Yeah. This is random, but I was at my parents yesterday and we were talking about, my son was like, fish don't feel pain when you like catch them. And we're like, there's no way that's true, whatever. And then we were talking about lobsters and screaming when you cook them. So my dad searched, do lobsters feel pain? And an AI, little snippet came up, and the very first sentence that was highlighted was like, yes, lobsters do feel pain. But the reason I'm telling that story is twofold. One, it was fascinating. Like literally he just asked a question and Google gave him the answer, but not with a bunch of links, but with that search generative content. It also highlighted the sentence that they thought he would find most important. And so it's interesting. It's just, I'm waiting for the day that we see that for apartment searches, because it will happen. It definitely will happen. Like you said,
I wonder what they're going to pull.
I don't know. The high domain, I mean, like Eden said, the high domain, high authority, but I can't imagine at some point that they won't. I do believe that will be in the beginning, like very high authority domains, but at some point, I think that it will also need to take into consideration localized results. So that it won't necessarily just be like, in our industry's cases, like the apartments.com or the rent.coms, or like the domains that are already showing high in organic search results. But I would imagine at some point that there will have to be like localized content that's infused in there too. Because even if our property websites aren't like high authority, they're more relevant content. In my mind, I don't know. That might be a lie. I don't work at Google, but in my mind, they are.
Yeah, that's a good point. You give me a lot to think about, though, because as I do this, I get a blank canvas. So maybe I should do some testing and just mess around with it. I am going to change up the homepage, I think, just in general, and try and do a little bit more video as I get it. Maybe not right at the beginning, but I do want to try some stuff. I want to start pushing our partners, our back-end partners, to help us to make the experience better.
And they have all the data. They have data across thousands of websites. So it's like we have data for, our portfolios, but they know how users are interacting with thousands and thousands of websites. And so I think you're right, asking them for data, asking them for what they're working on, like what is on their roadmap for their property websites, because that will show those are basically reactions to user data, right?
Yeah. But you're not gonna get a company to say like, we want to redo this because it works, right? Like people lease online all the time, every day. We get online leases and it's working, but I think it's clunky at times. And that's the whole point. It's like, how do you get these big partners to see that, hey, you can make improvements, where they're just going to come back and say, well, you had 1,000 leases last month online, all online. So, it's obviously working. And so that's where we have to come in and push them to say, how do we make this better? How do we make it more e-commerce? How do we make it user-friendly so it's not clunky? Sometimes you have to leave the page sometimes, right? When you go to these online leasing sites, like you don't even say on your website. It's a whole new experience.
Yeah, you go to a whole new domain. I mean, I think if we could set a new standard of how we expect our websites to convert, looking outside other industries, finding a benchmark that feels comfortable, going back to website partners and saying, this is what we're trying to accomplish. You need to help us get there. Yeah. That could maybe reframe the conversation so that it's not, well, no, you guys are doing fine. It's more like, no, this is our goal. You need to help us get there. So that might, and that's not in a threatening way or anything, but just in a setting expectations way, that you kind of have to move. Like I think it was Jude that was talking about, the 4-minute mile used to be like standard good. And then one person came in and started running, a 3 plus 3 minute, in some seconds miles, and all of a sudden the standard changed. Like, let's be the 3 minute mile runners and let's change the standards. Because if we start doing it, then expectations will shift and our partners always want to support us, but we're changing the bar.
I wonder how many other people are thinking about this, like me and you. We should start asking some of our other peers, or maybe somebody who catches us can let us know and email us. But it'd be interesting to see how many people are having the same conversation. Power in numbers.
Yeah.
And maybe we should start bringing it up in our just chats with other people that we're talking to in the industry, and just see if we can collectively start asking this question to get better.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I mean, I think you and I both know that there's kind of always themes of conversation, right? And usually when those themes occur, then change happens. So I think you're absolutely right that we could start talking to people about, how are you thinking about your websites? How are they performing? Is that okay with you? Or do you want them to be better?
Agree.
I love that idea. And I think, as we're sharing this content, like on LinkedIn, we can ask people, are you having these conversations? What are you thinking about? So going back to you and making the websites better, like, it sounds like video is your number one priority. What's your like number 1, 2, 3 priority for rethinking your property websites?
My number one is just figure out the order of content on the homepage to make sure we capture it without having to click somewhere else. I think that'll be my first priority. My second priority is going to be a video and FAQ, both written and video FAQs that we can repurpose other places. And I think my third will be the usability, improving the usability. I think our websites work great, and want anybody to think that we don't think that they're
Yeah, no, not at all.
not
Yeah.
working, and they're absolutely working. But just how can we make some tweaks? How can we think outside the box on some insanely great ideas to make them a little bit better? And so that's where I'm going to go moving forward, especially in my new project now. That's my takeaway, my homework. And this was a good one, Ann, just to kind of talk this out, because it's our number one asset, right? Our websites are our number one asset.
Yep. I 100% agree with you. And it's been a while, right? We've had guests for the last couple episodes. So, this is how it all started, was you and I just talking about what we were thinking about. So it was good to have this conversation. I almost like can't like we've talked about so much great stuff. I almost can't focus. Like I'm stuck on this idea of, how do we make the website experience better? And I think I really like the idea of the focus group. I really, really do, to kind of give us direction as well. So
You could, with prospects, if you really wanted to do it, everybody's busy, but
yeah,
you could just kind of have somebody in the office that says, hey, would you be willing to participate in a focus group on how your experience was to get through? And you only need 5. And you could, we always did some sort of incentive for sure.
yeah,
So offer them an incentive. And if they ended up moving in, you could tie it to their apartment. If they didn't, great. You can give them a cash incentive, or a cash incentive either way, and just say, hey, we only need X amount of time. And with technology today, you could even do a video. The only thing you have to think about is you got to do it around their time. So sometimes these things run late, but it might be worth doing it. It might be worth, because like if you send them a survey, you're not like talking to them face to face and being able to answer open-ended questions and going around the room and switching up who answers what first will make a huge difference. And you could even say that in this thing, maybe I could help you too. Like, we could talk more about this, but we could set, have the website up, say, hey, how did this work for you? And you can show them the pages and what was most important to you in your decision, and kind of go that route. And if it's successful, then you can do that, a couple times a year, and just see where you're at and make the tweaks that way.
yeah. I think that's a great idea. I will pick your brain on that. This woman, Shruti, I talk about her all the time. You know this. She works at Hampton by Hilton, but she told us that her and her team will sometimes like sit in the lobby of the hotel and basically be like, hey, do you guys have 5 minutes for us to ask you some questions about your experience? And then they'll hand out a gift card. But she said some of her best information came from those sessions. So
That's a good idea too. I mean, I sit in the leasing office, as you know, a lot, and you do get a lot of good info, but I've never structured it that way. I've never thought about talking to a prospect when they're there or a resident even, and just like spot ask them, that's not a bad idea either. I mean, it's not, it's a little bit different than a focus group, because a focus group, you can be prepared and have the questions and you can take it in different directions. But for some spot info, especially because it's fresh in their mind how they got there,
Yeah.
and how they found us, that's good. I mean, I do know I was spot asking questions. Did you find the leasing office okay? Because, you know, we had a couple of troublesome spots where Google put them in the wrong location and Google wouldn't change it. You had to walk basically a little bit.
Okay.
And so I would ask like, hey, did you have any problem like actually getting to the leasing office and things like that? And of course, and that's not a bad way to do it, and say, hey, I'll incentivize you to give me more than 30 seconds. I know you're busy,
Right.
but you know, that might be a good way to do it too.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I'm going to take that away.
Okay. I'm like obsessed with that. I went with my mom and my aunt on Thursday night. We went to the world's longest yard sale. It runs from Michigan to Alabama on Route 127. And so we went down to Kentucky and stayed the night in a Hampton. And like, I was like a fangirl. Like I was like, such a dork in this Hampton. Like, I'm like, oh, there's their hexagon. Like there's their brand. And they had like cookies out. I'm like, that's part of their brand. And I'm just like, I'm obsessed because I heard Shruti, at AIM talking about brand experience and how important it is. And so, again, not about websites, but
It is though, because their websites are going to be part of the brand too. It's all part of the same experience.
yeah.
I've been doing that with Hilton Garden Inn. I had to stay there a couple nights last year, and the experience was really good.
Yeah.
And I was just like, every time I drive by it, I joke with my wife, oh, there was my home away from home. Anyway.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, sorry, I just wanted to, every episode I'm going to have to talk about Shruti. And so,
Yeah. Well, this is good. I have some takeaways. I'm going to do some things maybe in my questioning a little bit different and approach it when I'm vetting these new companies. And you have a couple takeaways too, it sounds like. So this was a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chris, I appreciate your time as always. Thank you to everyone who's listening to, allow us to share our ideas with you. And we encourage you always to get in touch with us. If anyone ever wants to be a guest, feel free. We love talking to other people. Thank you to Carlos, who is our producer. And he got a huge compliment, right, the other day from one of our guests who just said the production value was amazing. So we agree. So thank you, Carlos, for making our conversation sound great. And until next time, this has been the Apartment Department. Thank you.